Welcome to the Fantasy Football Hot Stove with your hosts, Scott Simpson and Jamie Calandro, and your special guest, Brian Jester. Welcome, everybody, to the Fantasy Football Hot Stove. I am Scott Simpson, Nimble W Numbers on Twitter. Excited to be with you all tonight. If you like money, if you like DFS, if you like Millie Maker winners, if you like millionaires, this is the show for you. I'm really, really excited. I know DFS runs in your blood, Jamie. How are you doing, sir? Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Scott. I'm looking forward to be doing this. Just think, 1 week exactly from right now, we'll be watching regular season football, and I will have entered way too many Thursday Showdown DFS contests at that point.
Not me. I mean, I have no set limit on how much I can spend. My wife knows nothing about my, spending habits on Draftkings. I don't let her know, which is good. I'm not sure if Brian Jester is married, but welcome, Brian Jester. Are you married? Did your wife know what you're doing on Draftkings or no?
Yeah, I'm engaged, and once you win $1 million, you get a little more leeway with how many contests you can enter.
You've got a hall pass for a long time.
For sure. Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going?
Welcome, man. And if you don't know Brian Jester, he is a Millie Maker winner. We're going to get into that in a little bit. You can follow him over at Brian Jester FF on Twitter. Also, Occupy Fantasy on Twitter as well. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Brian, before we jump into the hot seat. How did you kind of come onto the scene of the DFS world, the Twitter world? Where would people know you from if they aren't aware of the big win that you've done, last 2 Super Bowls ago?
Yeah, so I've been playing fantasy sports forever. I've been writing about it for close to 10 years now. And 3 or 4 years ago, I decided to start my own website. Figured that there was a hole missing in the DFS industry for teaching people how to play the right way. And so that's when we started Occupy Fantasy. And we've been doing that for 3 to 4 years now. And I've been doing it full time for the anniversary is coming up 2 years now. So fully all in on the DFS world and fantasy football in particular. So the $1 million win definitely helped a little bit, but it's something I love to do. And, still to this day, there are big holes in the DFS industry for teaching people to play, and that's where we come into play with Occupy Fantasy.
No, I love it, and I'm excited this year to be partnering with you guys over at Occupy Fantasy. The link is in the description. We're going to be going hard and heavy for DFS this year as it comes up, like you said, Jamie, a week away. So please do sign up for Occupy Fantasy. If you're going to try to win $1 million, it's not a bad way to help you get started and to kind of give you that edge that you need. So thanks for coming on, Brian. What we're going to do for all guests is we bring you on to the hot seat right away. We want to get to know you better, hit you with some, hot questions. This is brought to you guys by our boys over at Hotbox Small Batch Gourmet Hot Sauce. Brian, if you're into hot sauces, I can hand deliver this one to you since you're a Maryland guy. This is from Bo McBigtime, my partner over at NimbleWNumbers.com. 300,000 Scovilles. It's the best hot sauce that you're going to burn yourself with, but want more and keep going back for. So we'll give you that as a guest for joining us on this segment. So here we go. You said, I watched your video. I loved it, by the way. It's a great video. And if you haven't checked out Brian Jester's Occupy Fantasy kind of intro video, go check it out. Really slick. Well done. You said in that video that you cried a lot when you took down the Draftkings Super Bowl million. So I want to know, between you and me, what does a lot mean? How to define that for me?
So, I was telling Jaime before the show started that, I was out in Vegas when this happened, when the $1 million hit happened. We go out there every year for the Super Bowl. And so I was with friends and family, and we're at a big Super Bowl party. And to be honest, the amount of tears that should be shed after a Super Bowl where a team wins 13-3, the acceptable level is 0. Like, no tears should ever be shed in that situation. I had slightly more than that, and the people in the party were very concerned about what was going on in our corner after the game ended. Like, why is this whole group so excited after a 13-3 finish? Some tears were shed. It was really just all the years of hard work finally paying off.
Oh man, that must have been the feeling of a lifetime there. Especially, Scott and I are big DFS guys. We've been playing for a long time as well, way back to the Draft Street days. And just grinding for that long and finally hitting that big one must have been amazing. So You won the largest single game contest in DraftKings history with the Super Bowl Millie Maker, the Patriots versus Rams. Do you remember the winning lineup?
Yeah, and at the time it was the largest. It's kind of like skyscrapers, right? Where one gets built and then
Yep.
immediately after someone else tries to build a larger skyscraper. So that's kind of what happens with these single game contests. Each year, each season, they get bigger and bigger. At the time, it was 351,000 entrants. The opening one next week is 450,000 entrants. So just massive, massive entry pools. Kind of what brought me to fame, and I did a lot of podcast hits after that, was just how terrible the lineup was from like a traditional construction standpoint. It had 0 quarterbacks in a showdown lineup. It included the defense. It left $2,700 left on the table. It captained a wide receiver without using his quarterback. And I kind of get a bad rap for it. You know, in some circles, I'm known as the guy who plays really terrible lineups. But when my goal in that particular showdown contest, and in general, most NFL showdown contests, is to try to get a unique lineup that also has high upside. You know, you're not just doing it just to create bad lineups. So that was the story around that lineup, and a lot of people still associate me with that lineup to this day, and rightfully so. You know, a lot of my lineups do look trashy in NFL showdown. Just don't make that mistake that for other sports where you don't need to get as trashy. My lineups don't look like that.
No, well, you know what? I like it. And I think that really it's not about putting in the most studs in your lineup. It's about putting the best players who are going to win you the money. So that's exactly what you did. And so, I mean, if you hate on the lineup, you're just hating on the game and the player, really, because that's where they originate from. So I think it's great. Here's a question. I'm not a big spendthrift. I kind of hold my money tight to my vest these days. Did you buy anything for yourself after you won? You know, you're like, okay, I've always wanted, you know, this computer or this, you know, Maserati, whatever, you know, that you went out and said, I'm gonna get something for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't buy a lot of things in general. I mean, I'm on my computer 14 hours a day. I'm in the house 6-7 days a week. So I don't really buy much, but I'm the type of person that if I want something, I will buy it. And I'm not going to go cheap on it. I'm going to buy the best that money can buy. And so really just a couple things for me. I just completely upgraded my entire computer setup. Had a janky setup before, but now 2 screens, everything to the max in the office, especially if I'm going to do that full time. That's why I upgraded there. We took a really nice trip down to St. Martin that summer after the Super Bowl hit, and just kind of did that to the max. And really, I just instead of going to pick up food for carry out, I just get it delivered now all the time.
The little things that matter, honestly, folks. You know.
Yes. I love the idea of behind the vacation too. That's every one of my big DFS wins has gone towards that. You know, we got the family. Right around Christmas a couple of years ago, I won $20,000 in DFS NBA, and that funded us a Disney trip in April. And that was, you know,
that's awesome.
That was a fun one too, because you know, then we were going to do it again the next year, because that actually funded 2. But then COVID hit, so we had to wait for it.
I was about to say $20K is like a couple tickets for Disney, right?
Yeah, right, right.
One kid comes, whichever kid you love.
Yeah, we chose. So you obviously love DFS like us. You know, other than Millie Makers or whatever, unless that's your favorite, what's your favorite weekly or daily contest to play? Sport, you know, single entry, cash, entry fee, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, you know, when I saw this question on the show sheet, I approached it a little differently. I don't play cash contests, you know, low risk contests ever. No 50-50s, no double ups, no head to heads. It's all GPPs and tournaments and satellites for me. And for me, I think about this question in 2 ways. What is my favorite sport to watch unfold, to build lineups for, and then also what is my favorite sport to sweat? Because I do think it's a different experience. So, you know, fantasy football has always been number 1 to me. So sitting down on a Sunday for 12 hours is always gonna take the top spot. You know, building lineups for NFL, watching those unfold throughout the day, watching all the games, easily the most enjoyable. But once quarantine hit last year and basically every sport disappeared, I found a new love for UFC and League of Legends DFS. And I think those 2 sports in particular have their own very interesting sweat aspects. Whereas in UFC, the fight unfolds, I mean, the card unfolds linearly, right? So like one fight happens and then another happens, and your lineups update after every fight, so you know where you stand, as opposed to all these things happening at once. In League of Legends, because most of the big contests happen in the Asian leagues, you're waking up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, you're putting your coffee on, and you're sweating the final game of the slate. And to get your day started like that, there's nothing like it. And you never could have told me this 2 years ago that that's what I would be interested in. But I think quarantine changed a lot of us in a lot of different ways.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's actually something that I really didn't think about. You know, I mean, I was missing sports. We were all missing sports, and we were missing DFS. But I mean, you know, when you think about people like you, Brian, who do it for full time now, and there's a lot who have taken that plunge. I mean, that affected them. That affected you guys to not have that and to have that taken away.
It's funny you say that, because I tell this story a lot. So again, in October, we'll be on 2-year anniversary of doing this full time. And as I was talking to my fiance 2 years ago, I would say, or my pitch to her was, you know, I want to leave corporate. I want to start doing this full time. Take a plunge into Occupy, take a plunge into DFS full time, because look, sports are never going away, right? They're never going to disappear. I'll always have something to do. If it doesn't work out, I can come back to corporate, but sports are always going to be there. And then literally like 3 months later, every sport disappears. And she was like, oh yeah, sports are never going away, right? And then that what you said? And so had to pivot a little bit with esports and UFC and whatnot.
Well, I think that's smart. And I got to say, I love watching the UFC cards unfold as well. And I'll put in a couple bucks here or there. And it just depends on where the big knockout comes or the unexpected play comes. And so it's not easier to pick winners, but I feel like I make more money just consistently in the little GPPs in UFC the last couple months than I do in NFL, where I either hit big or, you know, go home. So a lot of times, you know, you go home. So, all right, last segment. We're two teachers here. You know, Jamie's a music teacher. I'm a third grade teacher. So one of the things that we do at all staff meetings just to pass the time is 2 truths and 1 lie about yourself. So 2 truths that are about yourself, pretty, you know, self-explanatory. 1 lie. We have to figure out which one is the lie. And so after you say all 3, Jamie and I'll kind of banter back and forth, say our guesses, and then you reveal whether or not we're right or wrong. So anytime.
We've been keeping score here too.
Yeah, I'm winning. By the way.
Yeah.
All right. So I have to list 3 things. One is a lie and 2 are truths, right?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. So first statement is I have visited more than 15 countries in my life.
Okay.
Statement 2, I have a degree in computer science. Statement 3, I own more than 80 pairs of shoes.
Jamie, what do you think? I see a smile on your face, Jamie. Do you think you already know the truth or the lie?
Well, I'm coming back. He keeps talking about corporate America. The degree in computer science can fit that for sure. It could also not. I'm gonna call that one a truth. What was the first one? Oh, 15 countries. I'm gonna say that one's the lie. I'm gonna say the 15 countries is the lie. I think the 80 pairs of shoes is that quirky thing that you want us to think is the lie, and it's actually true. The computer science fits the way I think you were describing prior to DFS, so I'm going with the countries.
Okay, I'm going to go with the shoes because he did say when he won the DFS, he traveled to another country. So even though you do like to stay at home and kind of, you know, mind your wares, I'm guessing you like to get out too. So I'm going to say 80 pairs of shoes is the lie. Either one of us get it or we both wrong.
Somehow you both missed it. I've been to more than 15 countries. Like you said, I do like to travel. That's the one thing I do spend money on. Back in high school, early college days, I was a sneakerhead. And to be honest, I haven't sold a ton of them yet. I have over 100 pairs of shoes. These days I wear like maybe 5, right? We all get older. I just wear what's in the hallway, right? And then as far as computer science degree, I tried very hard and I didn't finish with the computer science degree. I started at the University of Maryland with the computer science major. Just wasn't for me. Basically failed out of that program. I ended up with a criminal justice degree. And so it's funny because a lot of our data models at Occupy Fantasy, my brother Moose, he runs all the data side and the coding side. And occasionally he'll be gone and something breaks down. I can look at it and kind of from a high level understand what's happening, but if I have to fix it, it's game over. So the computer science background is there, but it's very, very limited.
No, I like that. Did you get your criminal justice degree at Maryland?
I did.
See, Jamie, and a Terp. I'm a Terp as well. So I know, double Terp. Jamie, I'm sorry. We're not trying to gang up on you here, but we are going to beat you up and take your money later. In DFS. Oh, not like physically. That's not appropriate. All right. You survived the hot seat. Again, brought to you by Bo McBigtime's Hot Box Batch. Please go check some out over there at bigtimeflavor.co. All right. We're going to jump into our next segment. Our next segment is more about kind of your DFS backstory. This is brought to you by, or brought to everybody by Run the Sims, runthesims.com. DFS, fantasy, sports betting. It's awesome. I love it. Please go check out runthesims.com. My man, Jamie.
Wasn't Vernon Davis a Terp? Sorry, I just digressed a little bit there. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, he was. A great one, by the way, too.
Yeah. I was trying to think of football players as you were saying that who were Terps. The only one I can remember is God, I'm not going to think of his name. The linebacker, he played for the Chargers.
Oh, Sean Merriman.
Yeah, Sean Merriman. Thank you. There you go. Okay, good.
Stephon Diggs, the best wide receiver in the game, is a Terp. I mean, right there, number one, best.
Stephon, baby.
Diggs, Stephon, and then DJ Moore, too.
Oh, God, yeah, of course.
Football factory.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wide receiver forever. Wide receiver you, baby.
Of course. How could I forget? So, all right. So, Brian, we're going to get a little bit, like Scott said, of your DFS backstory. So first things first, if you could tell us, when did you first fall in love with sports, playing or watching? We like to ask all our guests this. We're all sports fans here. And who are your teams, in any sport, not just football?
And first of all, I called you Jaime earlier. That's my mistake. I'm sorry. So, Jamie, I'm very sorry for that.
They used to do that in high school, too, so no worries there.
I in high school, people thought the J was silent or it was Spanish, so I would get Brian Hester a lot. So I get it. And again, I apologize for that. So I started playing sports when I was 4 or 5 years old, and I always get the question, "Who's your favorite team?" And to be honest, I really don't have a favorite team. Maryland basketball is like the one team that I root for. Every other team, it's really just who's going to make me money that day. And I know that's not super exciting, but really that comes down to, I come from a gambling family. I really didn't have a choice. My parents raced horses for a living. They bet on sports. So on Sundays, instead of, we're putting our gear on and rooting for the hometown team, it's, hey, Mom, who do we need to cover today? Oh, the Jets +6. All right, I'm 6 years old, hoping that the Jets win by or don't lose by more than a touchdown. So really, that's what it came from, and always been involved in stats. And I always kept track of my own stats for my own games growing up. So that's really where it started. And when I learned about DFS and fantasy football, it was an easy transition.
Well, I got to say that's kind of like my not my same story, but just being in love with sports. It's one of the best things ever. I've been in love with it since I was born. I came out of the womb as a football, technically, bearded, hairy football. So yeah, no, very nice. And what's so funny, Brian, is growing up. Did you grow up in this area? You went to Maryland. I wasn't sure if you grew up locally playing sports here.
Yeah, I grew up in Southern Maryland, so I've been around the way. Yep.
Very, very competitive. I played baseball here, played football here. Very competitive. People love to play. Parents love to get their kids into it too. So, I'm really excited that your parents though love sports gambling so much. Like that. That is what's actually. My dad would go play baseball, didn't care about the lines. My grandfather, on the other hand, the lines. I love my grandfather for that. So, very cool. Kind of a follow up to that. When did you first realize, okay, I like sports. There's this thing called DFS. I'm into it. Were you into fantasy first? How did that kind of progression go in your kind of sports, monetizing it, and gambling wise?
Yeah. So in that same vein, I started playing fantasy football when I was 12. Like we had a friends and family league and it was for money. And I was 12 years old, like using my allowance money to enter the league. So I've always been playing fantasy football. And then I got into DFS a little bit later. I wasn't even on Draft Street. It was right after Draft Street closed shop. So, probably 6-7 years ago. And I had learned about it from Twitter and other content sites and hearing about it. But I was the type of person that I didn't want to jump in immediately. And when I first found out about it, it was the middle of a football season. And I said, okay, I'm going to just take the next 9 months or whatever it is and just learn as much as I can about it. And that's kind of how I am anyways. If I start something new, just read everything I can, start playing around with it. And so I took the next 9 months and built a little bankroll through sports betting and put some money aside for DFS. And then the following year I jumped into it and started playing FanDuel and Draftkings and tried to take it seriously.
No, excellent. I like how you didn't just jump in right away and lose money. You did a little research on the front end to see how you could maximize your profit and be successful in your endeavor. I love that. That's excellent. We're dealing with a smart person here, Jamie. I'm just telling you, Maryland stock, it's good people.
I remember I saw an ad pop up for Draft Street, and I just decided to try it and lost and lost and lost for a while and wondered like, what am I doing wrong? And then started to do the same thing and learned what I was doing wrong, which is, sometimes it's tough to have to take those licks and redeposit over and over again. But in the long run, it's all for the better.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of losing. I mean, I lose an uncomfortable amount nowadays, right? Just for any person who plays, like I lose a ton playing fantasy, but that's part of the game. Like when you're playing high risk contests, you're going to lose way more often than you win, and a big part of that is just becoming okay with it. And there's a certain point where it's, on the end of a long losing streak, you always question yourself, am I built to do this? And then inevitably the big hit comes again, and then you think to yourself, I'm the greatest player there ever was, and that cycle just continues over and over and over again. But believe me, I've lost enough over the last few years, losing 5-6 nights a week just to hit once. Definitely lost enough to make up for being smart about it in the beginning.
Yeah, and the one thing I remember from the beginning is like, the advertising was for a 50-50, like, just beat half the competition and win double your money back. It's like, oh, that's easy. I can do that. And I'm wondering, like, I'm doing these 10-person double ups, and I'm wondering, like, why am I constantly in 8th or 9th place in this thing? And it's because I'm going up against Notorious from Roto Grinders and Drew Dinkmeyer and Al Zeidenfeld every single night. Is in.
And you have no idea who those people are, right? You don't
I have
know
no
at the
idea
time,
who they
right?
were
So
then.
yeah, right,
And
exactly.
then, now as I've grown in the industry, I'm like, wow, that I really just donated to them for a good 6 months for a while there.
So with that being said, it's really, sorry, Jamie, to cut you off. It is easy to be in that losing percentage of people who are not winning money. How can people kind of get out of that mindset, like move from where Jamie was or where you were, in the beginning, to kind of where a successful player is banking, not every single night, but more consistently than they were when they first started?
The biggest thing is self-awareness. And it's not, that's not just in DFS, right? That's literally everywhere in life, being self-aware of where you fit in, what you know, and more importantly, knowing what you don't know. So it comes down to, for some people it's ego, and so for some people it's just pure ignorance. We have some people that think, especially if you come from a fantasy, like a season-long background, and you come over to DFS football, you're like, well, I know everything. I win all my seasonal fantasy leagues. I'll come in and I'll crush NFL DFS, when it's a completely different game. And you have some people who play DFS and they want to enter contests against those top pros that you just named because they think they can beat them and they want to beat them. You have to understand that, these guys do this for a living and you don't have to play against them. And there's also the ignorance that you don't know that that's a thing. You don't know that there are professionals out there. You don't know what it takes to be a winning player. And so just by recognizing one of those two things, you can easily put yourself in better spots to win in DFS. And the other issue comes from being just too short-sighted. As humans, we always want to put what benefits us in the immediate future or today first and put what the future holds on the back burner. But you have to change that mindset in DFS too. I know it's literally called daily fantasy sports, but you have to have a long-term plan. And then you have to make decisions each day that fit into that long-term plan. And that's how you can start to overcome the 90% losing figure.
No, I love that. That's excellent. And it's having an understanding of who you are, what you want to accomplish, and then how you're going to be able to do that effectively. And actually not just go, I'm just going to throw some money in this lineup and I hope it hits. We'll see. Which I'm going to say it last year, Brian, it did hit for me on week 2. I put in a 50 cent in a, the 150 lineup max, contest. I got second place out of 300,000 entries. And you know what? I would have won the Millie Maker if I would have played that lineup in the Millie Maker. It would have won by 7. And so, for me, I need to grow in my self-awareness of what I have and where to use it and which contest to put it in to be most successful with my GPP. So that's something I definitely want to learn about. And you've got great tools over there to read about it over there at Occupy Fantasy that people can get started. You got the daily plug that they can read. We'll talk a little bit more about that coming up, but a lot of stuff that people can just get into to read and to learn about how to become a better DFS player. And so some of that back end research isn't in the app putting in lineups or even building lineups. It's reading about how to construct your lineups and then going and building it. So great tools over there. I got to say, I love it. And I'm not just saying that. I actually approached Brian to work for you guys because I like the tools so much. and I've used them to win money. So I was like, this is a great thing that other people really need to know about.
I appreciate that, Scott. No, I knew you were being transparent about it, and you weren't just trying to do a partnership. I know you like the tool, so I definitely like hearing that. And your story about putting your lineup in the 50-cent contest and it would have won the milli, that's another issue that plagues people, and rightfully so, right? Because if you're like, oh, if I'd have put this in the millionaire, I'd have $1 million. I could quit my job. I could do this. I could do that. But when in reality, I mean, and I don't know what you were planning on playing that day, Scott, but most people, if they say, oh, I could have won X in this contest, you probably weren't going to play that contest that day anyways, right? Unless you were truly planning on playing that one contest and you didn't put the lineup in, sure, that sucks. But most of the time, trying to compare your lineup to other contests and would have won, you can spiral pretty quickly.
Oh yes, no, definitely. And every week, what I do on the show, and I'm going to do it this year on Chalk Block on Saturday night, is we're going to use the lineup builder, the generator tool over there at Occupy Fantasy to build our lineups. And then we're going to enter in one lineup into the Millie Maker every week. So we did it last year, one bullet in the chamber. Maybe a couple. We put a couple in sometimes just for fun, but we're not 150 maxing. We're not rich over here at the Simpson family. But I need to know, just from my own understanding of the contest too, where and how to play. So this is a great place to get started for me. And I'm going to do some more reading. Even though I won some last year, my ego is out the door. My wife lets me know all the time, you are a loser. You are a loser, Scott. So you never can stop learning. And as a teacher, Jamie knows we never stop. We're always growing, trying to get better. You never reach a zenith of understanding and education. So I love it. Great stuff over there. One last question about satellite. I think Jamie has a question for you about the satellite strategy, because you mentioned it earlier as kind of the key to get you into that Millie Maker. And so, I want to hear more about that.
Yeah, so satellites are an interesting one in DFS. So in your opinion, Brian, how can players use the satellite strategy to, maximize that potential bankroll for them?
Yeah, for sure. And just to hit on Scott's point about continuously learning, that's a key point for people who play DFS regularly, whether they're pros or amateurs, whoever it is, always learning. And again, I've been very successful in NFL DFS. That's my most profitable sport, but that doesn't mean I'm resting on my laurels. Like literally as we speak, we have some research running in the background on our computers to help us out for these first 4 weeks of the season, trying to see what has worked in early September compared to the rest of the year. So we're always learning and trying to figure out new edges, because the game changes and it shifts. And so trying to be ahead of those curves is how you can stay profitable. So the satellite strategy is interesting because you don't hear anyone else talk about it. And a lot of pros and a lot of other sites, they dismiss satellites because they call it paying the double rake, right? You pay the rake when you play the satellite. You pay the rake when you play the actual GPP if you win a ticket in that satellite. But really, it comes back to that long-term plan. I think this is really the one way to grow your bankroll to the next level and give yourself a chance at life-changing paydays without digging into your pocket too deep. Really, what it essentially is targeting future contests by playing these satellites. And ideally, you secure multiple tickets to these future GPPs. So like if you take the Millie Maker, for example, whether it's the one I actually won, it was 2 months and they were offering $10 satellites. The winner got $10 for, quarter entry, 50-cent entry, dollar entry. And I was just hammering those satellites for 2 months, trying to rack up as many tickets as I could. I ended up with 80 entries and you figure that's $800 in tickets, and I got it for less than $300. So first of all, you get a discount on your entries. That's number one. Two, satellites, it's almost like a forced savings, and it's almost like a forced better contest to play as far as payouts go, because most contests that we play that are high risk, they're exponential payouts, right? First gets $10, second gets $5, third gets $3 or whatever. In a satellite, the top X% all make the same amount of money, right? If the top 5 get tickets, the top 5 get $10 each, right? Whereas it's not exponential. So in reality, it acts as a multiplier, a quintuple up, a triple up, whatever it may be, compared to your typical exponential payout contest. Then it forces you to save that bankroll for future contests. And the best part about it is that ticket is usually for a higher level of buy-in that your bankroll says you should play than if you entered the money yourself with your own bankroll, your own cash. So not only do you get it for a fraction of the cost, not only does it force you to save your money, not only does it a higher ROI contest in the near term, it gives you a chance. And especially for smaller bankrolls, if you win a $10 ticket, a $20 ticket, or if you go up to my bankroll level and you win a $2,000 ticket, whatever it may be, you're going to enter a contest then at a much higher level with much higher payouts with smaller entries than you would enter at your own current bankroll level. So the benefits are endless for satellites, and to see not a lot of people talk about them is fine for me because that's just more for us. But I really do think more people of all bankroll levels should be implementing this into their long-term plan.
That's great stuff. That's great stuff right there, I think. And yeah, that's actually like, I don't spend a ton. I've gotten into some of those bigger things, just hammering those things out myself. So I can attest to that as well. That's really good stuff.
No, I like it a lot too. And I think one thing that stood out to me is that you are kind of fulfilling what you said earlier about your forward thinking and how you're trying to lay out your game plan for how your money is maximizing its play all year long, not just this week. I'm thinking about what contest I'm in, but how am I going to be building this so that by, this money becomes more money, even though if I don't even win the next contest, it's still worth more money. So I like all of those strategies. I think those are awesome. This is gold, folks. And I know that the fan team advice folks love DFS. The fantasy football community in general is getting around to the DFS, but the fan team advice is going to love this one for sure, man, because they're all about it. That's all they bother Jamie for is his articles and the optimizers and when's that shit coming? I need that shit now, that drip, So no, I think that's perfect. So thank you. All right, so let's jump into now a little bit more about Occupy Fantasy itself. So we talked about a little bit around the periphery, but this next segment is going to be brought to you by Occupy Fantasy. Join the 10%. Don't be part of the 90, right? Don't be losing money consistently and having to go back to your wife or your girlfriend or your husband or your lover or whoever it is, your kids, and say, I need more money. Don't do that. What is the best way for folks to get the ultimate guide over at Occupy Fantasy and to get part of that 10%?
Yeah, so that's really our flagship product. It's something that I suggest everyone read before they even purchase an Occupy Fantasy membership. Or if you're a part of another, that's fine. If you're a part of another site, you don't purchase memberships or whatever, that's totally fine. I do suggest everyone to read the Ultimate Guide because it is our flagship product and it teaches people to play DFS the Occupy way, the way that we've discovered. And it's completely different from the rest of the industry. And that alone gives you an edge, right? When you're zigging when everyone's zagging, that is automatically inherently good and inherently an edge. So really, this Ultimate Guide, it's an ebook, is 19 chapters, and it breaks down every minute detail when it comes to DFS. And the beginning of it, it starts by asking you, why are you playing DFS? The entire first chapter is dedicated to understanding why you want to play. Is it a side hobby? Do you just want to learn some new sports? Do you want time away from the wife and kids? Do you want to turn this into a real legitimate income? Do you want to go pro? Whatever it may be. Why do you want to do this? And then after that, set goals for why you want to do this and how you want to accomplish them, right? No one else talks about this, but set goals. And then each action, like I said earlier, that you take each day should be pointed towards those goals that you wrote down at the beginning. And those goals are going to change over time, right? As you win more money, as you lose more, your goals are going to change, but always going back to referencing those goals. And then the guide breaks down all the different types of contests and how to properly pick the right contest for your bankroll. It talks about how to manage your money properly. And then it talks about the satellites and the long-term aspect of playing DFS. And I even myself, I go back and remind myself as a refresher every now and then. But it truly is a must-read book if you want to learn to play DFS the right way.
Yeah, no, it's up here. Occupy Fantasy, go check it out. And, this is something I think I'm going to have to read. I'm going to have to read it. And as a teacher, I don't mind reading. I like reading. But this is going to help me become a better DFS player. And so I kind of don't want people to read it. Like I do, but I don't, like it's like secret. Like that's the thing about my rankings. I just put my rankings out there on Patreon. You can go check them out. Check out, Nimble W numbers, scroll down a little bit. My new Patreon, I just launched it. I want to give the rankings out, but I've been like, I don't want people to find out who are going to know and draft against me. It's a whole secret conspiracy. So I think it's cool. I think it's cool, Brian, that you're sharing your secrets and we're able to leverage them against our friends and family and win some money. So no, very cool. Very cool.
And bankroll management is, I think, still something that's not talked about enough. So that's appreciated that you have that in there because you can pick all the right plays you want, but you can't guarantee yourself winning every night. And you've got to protect that bankroll, and you've got to play it smart, and not just dump it every single night and play 50% of your bankroll just on a whim every night.
I mean, you're going to lose, just point blank, right? If you can't accept that fact, then DFS isn't for you. Any type of investing where you have to put up money up front is not for you. You're going to lose. And when I say, again, I have a very high risk approach, right? And when I say I lose 90% of the time, that's not even a joke, right? 90% of the slates, I'm probably losing. I know it's a great endorsement for Occupy Fantasy, but 90% of the time, I'm personally losing because I'm playing for those 1% outcomes. And I'm okay with that. And that goes back to the type of player I want to be and the type of goals I've set for myself. Others who play much smaller contests aren't going to lose nearly as often, but you're still going to lose 40, 50, 60, maybe 70% of the time. So being okay with that is number one, mentally. And then two, you have to have the money to be able to handle those swings. So if you're not managing it properly, you're going to hit that deposit button.
Yeah. Yeah. And the goal about, for me, if playing DFS isn't to be chasing anything, it's to be going into each contest, knowing what I want to accomplish out of it. And so last year I started I don't do cash either. That's not my strategy. I do GPPs. I love GPPs. My partner, Bowman Big Time, he's a cash bastard. He won like 88% of his cash games last year. So we worked on that.
Too.
And yeah, you're Jamie. You guys are just crushing it. So I'll take their lineups and go into the $100 double up and win a couple extra $100 that then I will use for GPPs. So like I even have like a cash strategy backdoor just to get extra cash for GPP. So I agree with you. I'm low skill, like nimblewnumbers.com. We're newer on the block. We're year 3 in the making. Whereas Occupy Fantasy, there's millions in the taking over there. So we're working on there. We're getting there. And working with you guys, partners with you guys, really excited about it because also being a Maryland person, this is cool because we can actually go out and do lunch one of these days and get some real lunch, and we can talk shit about Jamie. You know what I mean? So
sorry, Jamie.
Yeah, sorry, Jamie.
I'm gonna find some good Maine guest and bring him on here. There's nobody else in Maine.
Yeah, good luck. Surprisingly, Maryland has a lot of DFS players and sports bettors and poker players. It's really weird for as small of a square footage it is. There's a decent amount of gamblers here.
I'm learning this by the week.
Well, I'm just really waiting for the Maryland legislature to pass out all those licenses to all of these sports books so that we can gamble on our phones. Get your shit together, Maryland. Yes, this podcast is explicit because I'm talking fucking shit against you. We want to gamble. The people have spoken. Our will is there. Get us our stuff so we can do it every single day on our couch, not to drive to DC or West Virginia or use a backdoor proxy. Come on, let's go, people.
Dude, it's mind blowing how long it's taking them to get this done.
Maine too. I'm so good at it and I can't do it.
Dude, sucks.
It's the worst. But we do devolve. One more thing I did want to touch on over there at Occupy Fantasy that I like, and I think I've frozen, but you guys can still hear me. So that's the good part. Is the daily plug. Talk about that. That's a great tool for showdowns, for weekend slates that are smaller, for things, really for anything. But I really love the showdown aspect of it. Talk about the daily plug and how that works.
Sure. So the daily plug is our weekly or daily write-up, depending on the sport. And it's what a lot of people come to the site for, right? Like people who sign up for memberships, they want the picks. Who are the picks? Who should I play? Who should I play? Who should I play? Most people, they ignore the long-term aspect and they want to know who to play tonight. So that's really where this comes into play. We tell you who to play, right? We contextualize the slate. Who are the top plays from our model? What are some other plays we're looking at? What does ownership look like? But really, it's a roadmap for the slate. Not only does it tell you who to play, it tells you why to play them, how to put them in your lineups to create profitable lineups, all different lineup strategies for different contest types, FanDuel and DraftKings. And then most importantly, because we have to tie it all back to our core values at Occupy, is bankroll and contest recommendations for that particular slate. So if we think it's a really good slate, we might say, okay, use 3 to 4% of your bankroll tonight. If there was a couple preseason slates, we didn't feel like we had that great of an edge, use 0, don't play maybe, or 1% of your bankroll tonight. So really what we try to do is capture the essence of bankroll and contest selection and drill it down into an individual slate while giving you the best plays to play that night.
No, I like that. And my partner over at nimblewnumbers.com and Chalk Block is talking some shit right now. Bowman Big Time. He said, I'm going to need your help to be able to beat him this year. Yeah, of course. I'm going to need Jamie's help. I'm going to need Bo's help. I'm going to need Brian's help. I'm going to need everybody's help. Yeah, that's what a smart person does. I don't have to do all the thinking. I work and learn from other people, and then I use some of my thinking, and then, I don't even claim it as me. I don't do victory laps and say, look at me, I won. I say, holy shit, did you see what just happened? That's crazy. So I didn't cry when I won my $5,000, but my wife did. Because I told her it wasn't coming to her, so she couldn't. She wasn't getting, no, I mean I struggle. Your first 5 Gs, that's for you. You know what I mean?
Listen, Scott. You made a rookie mistake, right? First of all, you told her how much you won.
I
know. Anytime the question comes up, you broke even every time.
Well, here's what happened: is I showed her the Draftkings app and said, "Look, I'm winning $800," and she goes, "No, you're not. That's not real at all." I said, "Oh shit, I'm winning $3,000 now. Check this out. They got a touchdown. Oh my gosh!" She's like, "That's not real." So then when I cashed it out and I bought Draftkings stock and I bought, now she's like, "Is it real?" I'm like, "Yeah, I made a couple thousand. It's real." So, but then I'm going to cash it out. I'm going to put it back into DraftKings. That was my whole scheme. Make some money in the stock market off the money that I made off of DraftKings so that I could put it back into DraftKings to then build my I'm
in the cycle.
I've got Brian, I'm low tech, but I'm working on it. You know what I'm saying? So I've got goals. I appreciate it. All right. So that was, kind of the backstory behind. Let's jump into a little bit about kind of what lineups we want to build. Now, I went and I checked. We're not able to build lineups just yet because we're a little further out. But I still wanted to talk about kind of this coming up slate. What are some of the kind of the big questions around how we're building, what you're building for your GPP contest. And so, we had a couple questions I threw to you in the show sheet, but really kind of anywhere to jump off as you start to kind of approach this week 1 slate. The prices, might be a place to kind of jump in and start. What have you noticed about the prices in general and kind of what the action's looking like?
Yeah, so week 1's always interesting, right? Because the pricing comes out earlier than normal. Usual weeks it comes out Sunday night. We have 6 days to analyze it and not much changes. Whereas we have a month and a half for things to change. And as a result, we see super underpriced players in week 1 because obviously their roles change and injuries happened in preseason training camp. And to me personally, my results in September aren't that great. It's a big reason why I'm doing that research I was talking about earlier. Is that variance? I don't know. Still trying to figure that out. Or is there something inherently different about the first month of the season than in weeks 5 through 16 and 17? I think that is, right? There's less data to go on. Vegas odds aren't as sharp from a standard deviation perspective. There's a lot of different reasons why things could be different in the early weeks. And the primary thing is what you just said on, Scott, is the salaries. And it becomes such a unique, interesting puzzle to solve in week 1 because there's so much value. Even on DraftKings, where we struggle to find value on most weeks, there's a ton of value, right? You have let's say Marquez Callaway, who's 3,400, easy value play. But then you also have running back value plays and quarterback value plays and other receivers and literally there's value everywhere. So I think the big question to me is, and I don't know if you guys have a take on it, where do you start dissecting that value because everyone can find it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jamie, where do you start this week where you look at it for your perspective? Where are you looking? I know you started a cash perspective. So where are you kind of looking at? These are my surefire hits that I know I can trust where they have a really top ceiling.
Yeah. I mean, generally for cash, I wind up being pretty successful early on because of what Brian has been describing. And it usually falls in the wide receivers there. He mentioned one that is going to be likely mega chalk at $3,400, and in cash you don't have to worry about that. That extra level of research goes into the GPP slate where you got to decide, do I fade this monster chalk or do I eat the pretty much free receiver that seems to already have upside with Jameis Winston? So that's a tough thing about GPPs. So I mean, I've already kind of built a preliminary one right now. I'm kind of looking for in cash, I pay for those running backs because the touches are so, you get such a high floor touch. And I'm looking for those value wide receivers. We're going to talk about tight ends in a minute. I love Travis Kelce, and I have no problem paying for his price tag in cash at 8,300 over the other tight ends. So I'm looking for those value wide receivers. You mentioned Marquez Callaway. We got Terrace Marshall at $3,000, Marvin Jones at $3,600. That's just a couple off the top of my head that I've found. So that's my first spot on value. I don't know about the two of you guys as GPP players, if you approach it a little bit differently.
I just like to hear everyone else, and then I steal people's picks. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, Marvin Jones, I know. Yeah.
Yeah. What? Say that again? No. To be honest with you, I really and I want to see how he does. When it comes to kind of being back in the offense, but I love Elijah Moore at $3,000.
That's another one, yeah.
and that's more for those big GP play upside plays that, if somebody does go off in that game. But I also love Terrace Marshall in that game for $3,000 as well. So I don't know what the rookie data looks like. And Justin Jefferson was in that big lineup that I kind of pulled my win on last year. I stacked him up with Kirk Cousins, and this was pre-COVID Cousins. So hopefully Kirk is still back and he can just fling it like he used to. But for me, I'm looking at those underpriced wide receivers, but then I'm also looking at some high-priced wide receivers. Honestly, I do like Calvin Ridley a lot this week. I don't know how chalky he's going to be though. Just given he's the third highest at 7,900. It's a good price, but man, the Philadelphia Eagles defense has been notoriously known for giving up touchdowns and for giving up lots of yards. I feel like this game is going to be an over game. I'm not sure what the model says on it yet, but that's one where I'm kind of leaning. What about you, Brian? Any favorites you kind of have in here from the wide receiver early on perspective?
Yeah, not yet. And to be 100% honest, I haven't dug into the slate yet. And like you said, our model isn't up yet. Really, I'm just trying to think about it conceptually first. Like what spots am I looking at? What is the field likely going to do? What are the questions I have to answer? And I think the value receiver question is super interesting because all these guys that are really cheap and project to be, I think from a median projection standpoint, they stand to look pretty good and they'll carry some decent ownership. But to me, if you look at the distribution of their points or their likely distribution, it's a wide range of outcomes outside of maybe Callaway, because we have a guy who's literally the wide receiver one for a team with a quarterback that can throw, an offense that is notoriously pretty good, historically pretty good, and not much competition for targets. Where we have these other 3K players like Terrace Marshall, like Elijah Moore, maybe, like Marvin Jones. There's a bunch of 3K options that we don't know where they fit in the pecking order of their team. And they might be popular as a result, but they could end up being the number 3 or number 4 option on week 1. And so to me, I think those are the players we might want to avoid unless, and I think this is to me, when you play chalky receivers in high risk contests, large GPPs, the way you can kind of offset that high ownership is by using them in a game stack. Game stacking is one of the key principles of playing large GPPs. It's how I won all my big GPPs. And if you can include a popular receiver in a game stack, and Green Bay and New Orleans with Callaway is one of my favorite game stacks of week 1, then even though Callaway himself is popular, the amount of lineups that are using 3 Packers and Callaway or 3 Saints, including Callaway and a Packer, drops significantly to less than 5%, even though Callaway is going to be 30% or whatever he's going to be. So to me, playing those chalky receivers in game stacks or figuring out how to pivot away from them outside of game stacks is probably the number one approach, especially for week 1. So, Green Bay, New Orleans is a stack that I like. Arizona and Tennessee, and a lot of our members, if they're watching this, will make fun because I literally stack Arizona every week for like 4 years. And it's just their pace of play, it results in some shootouts, and they always look good on paper. Minnesota and Cincinnati, I think, is one that can go under the radar. And then Kansas City and Cleveland is another game that these are the stacks I'm going to be eyeing for week 1.
Yeah, no, I think those are some great stacks. And Jamie, you alluded to it earlier at the tight end position with Kelsey. Are you stacking Kelsey 8,300? I mean, if you're going to go Mahomes, you're talking about 16.4 for that stack, probably the most expensive tight end quarterback stack you're going to get. Jamie, what about you? We'll start with you. Are you into Kelsey? Are you stacking him? Are you playing him naked? What are you thinking about?
Yes to all the questions. I definitely agree with Brian in looking at stacks right now as ones that I'm kind of wanting to get that shootout total that may be less ownership than the other stacks, like that Arizona Tennessee one, which is sure to be popular. Cleveland and Kansas City stood out to me right away. It's a little bit difficult to do a Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey stack and bring it back with a Browns player. I haven't done it yet to see exactly what I'm going to be left with. But it seems like it's fairly doable with like Odell Beckham's price kind of depressed in week 1 at $5,400. I'd ideally like to do Chubb, but I think everybody would want to do it that way. So I'm fine taking that little kind of differentiation with the Browns bring back and having it be Odell or even Kareem Hunt or something along those lines, just to save some money. So the rest of my team around that staff isn't just, or that stack isn't, just these terrible prayers that I'm trying to throw in. Because with GPP and Brian, you can speak to this better than me, but a lot of people think your entire lineup has to be creative in a GPP. Like they all got to be 1%ers. I don't think it is necessarily that way. You mentioned your win in the Millie Maker with 2,700 free and a naked wide receiver with no quarterback in a showdown. That is, that's like a bonkers build that everything kind of hit to get you that top prize. But, in typical GPPs, how do you feel about that? Do you need to be all single digit percents, or can you kind of win a Millie Maker with some chalky plays?
It's such a good question. And again, like I said, I got that reputation from having such a trash lineup win $1 million that people just assume that's how I build all of my lineups. But in NFL, I surprisingly, even in the 300,000 player Millie Makers, all of my high finishes have been from just an overall ownership standpoint, pretty chalky, right? I'm not playing super terrible plays just because they're low owned. Because, like I said earlier, people don't game stack enough. Like this Kansas City Cleveland example that we're talking about, right? Kelsey, if he's 30% owned, right? And we do this, I like doing this exercise. We have a show every Tuesday called the $1 Million Mission, where we review my previous week's 150 lineups from FanDuel and DraftKings. We talk about why I chose the players I did, what my results were, what other chop pros did, what winning lineups did. And then we also look at game stack ownership percentages, just to really drive home that people don't game stack enough. So what we would look at this Kansas City Cleveland example, let's say in week 2 after the games conclude, and we'll see that Kelsey will bring up the stack generator. Kelsey was 30% owned. Let's add Mahomes in. 15% of lineups had Mahomes and Kelsey. Now we add another player. Let's add Clyde Edwards-Helaire, let's say, right? Now we're down to just 3% of lineups have these. You run it back with Odell Beckham, now less than 1% of the lineups in 400,000 entries have this 4-man stack with huge ceilings, right? So that goes to show you can play all these chalky guys, but no one's playing them together, no matter how many sites, no matter how much content is out there talking about game stacks. People just do not do it enough. Maybe that changes this year. I wouldn't bet on it. So to me, my NFL lineups are pretty chalky. I might have 1 or 2 guys that are less than 10% owned. The rest are pretty decent plays. My running backs in particular are pretty much always popular running backs. They're like 40%, 50% owned, 30% owned. I'm not playing any low-owned guys at running back. So if you see my lineups in Classic, compare them to Showdown, which is a much different story. I think people do try to get too cute in NFL GPPs for the Classic slates when they really don't have to.
No, I think that's great. I'm wondering, we're talking about eating the chalk here. Kyle Pitts, 4,400. How chalky do we think he might be? Are we talking like 40%, 50% owned? Or rostered or whatever it is nowadays? What do you think?
Oh, man. I don't know if he'll get that high. I think a lot of people will play Kelsey too. Honestly, a lot of people will probably play him together.
Right.
And believe me, I've gotten in like 100 Twitter fights this offseason just talking about why Kyle Pitts is essentially a receiver and not a tight end. So I think if there's 1 week to play a tight end at flex, this might be it. I still probably won't do it. But he'll be pretty popular. I guess the question is, what does that do for the rest of your lineup, right? Because now you can't play another tight end. If you do flex him, now you're missing out on the good running back and receiver values to add in an extra one to your lineup. This is the cheapest we'll ever see Pitts, I assume.
Right.
So I think we have to take advantage of that. What that means as to how he fits in the lineups, I honestly haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, no, it's an enigma that we have to kind of unpack and see. I'll say this: I do like chasing touchdowns in the tight end position. I got in the big score I had last year. I had my guy Jordan. It was Jordan Reed. He had 2 touchdowns against the Jets, and then Tyler Higbee had 3 against the Eagles, and that's who Kyle Pitts is playing. And the Eagles linebackers do not know how to cover wide receivers that are pretending to be tight ends. So part of me is like, deja vu. Do you take it right from the beginning? So this is a good kind of thing to go back and forth about. So all right,
he's a very irritating price tag to me too, because I like to pay up or all the way down at the tight end position generally, and that 4,000, 4,500 range is just in that area of annoyance where it messes up the rest of my cash builds.
Totally.
So I'm really curious to see what his ownership projections are going to be, and if I'm going to have to kind of swing that way a little bit with it, even as a double tight end, because I agree with you. I think if I don't do it, but if there's a week to do it, I think this looks like it might be, because I don't think we're going to see him this low again. You're right.
I know. By the way, I just looked at the YouTube screen and I didn't realize that you had DraftKings up, Scott, and you were showing your balance. Sheesh, man. Save some for the rest of us. Damn.
Oh, well, I mean,
I didn't even see it.
I had to keep some in because, like I said, my wife, she knows a little bit, everything.
No, I'm just playing with you. No, I'm excited for week 1, guys. I mean, it's the most interesting puzzle of the year as far as classic slates go, and there's a variety of ways you can attack it. I'm super excited to see. I mean, we did get to have preseason this year, which is a nice added factor that we didn't have last year. So we get a little more insight into what teams are going to do. But every year there are surprises the first couple of weeks, and I'm excited to see it all unfold.
Yeah, no, me too. And one thing that my friend over at 444.com, Jordan Vanek, looked at is he looked at when the flex was more valuable for which position. So when was running back more valuable in the beginning of the season or middle of the season, end of the season? And one thing he did notice was if you do lean running back in your flex a little bit more in the beginning of the season, there is more value for some of those running backs that you said maybe you're targeting 30-40%. Well, normally on a slate, there's more than 1 or 2 good running backs that you want to have in your lineup. There's 3 or 4. So if you can put a good solid, ceiling running back that a James Robinson in your lineup who is going to get all the touches against a horrible team, things like that. But those are going to be leverage plays that you can do. So whereas later in the season, there was more wide receiver variance and kind of those were the spiking kind of better flex plays. So not that it's set in stone, but that's something to kind of look at. And maybe because of COVID, that was what kind of made the most sense, was giving the ball more to running backs. Maybe, Air Coryell will start out the whole season, everybody just throwing it around. I don't know, but it's nice to go one way or the other and just kind of get started. And I'm sorry I'm lagging. I'm definitely looking silly, Jamie. I can see it's terrible. Maryland internet.
Hey, I don't know. My internet's fine, so I don't know what part of Maryland you're in, Scott.
Oh, your face is catching up to all your words now. There we go.
Far away. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So no, this has been great. So let me just ask you, Brian, what's coming up for you guys next? Whether it's for yourself or any, the Occupy Fantasy. I know the season's about to get started.
Yeah, man. This is the calm before the storm this week. It's nice to have this 1 week break in between the preseason and the regular season. I'm just getting everything set up because the grind starts next week. Daily schedules Monday through Sunday. And so really all the content, we're pumping out a ton of content, both written and audio and video. So at Occupy Fantasy, just follow us, occupyfantasy.com, sign up for a membership. Hell, use Scott's link so he gets the added credit. And follow us on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, because we're putting out a ton of content. I'm putting out showdown videos 2 times a week. And also the $1 Million Mission series, which I'm the most proud of, because it's really a nice hour-long session where people aren't bombarding you with picks questions, and it's a really informative and educational session. I learned a lot by doing it every week, and we do that on YouTube every Tuesday. So just subscribe to the Occupy Fantasy YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at Occupy Fantasy. You can catch up on everything that we're doing.
That's awesome. I appreciate you. Yeah. And, we're also going to try to have you on. I think maybe it's tomorrow. I'm not even supposed to be. I'm not sure if it's this week or next week over on Chalk Block. Maybe I think it's next week, right? I'm not sure. We'll figure it out. But I'm really excited this year to be able to feature all of our shows. We're going to be using the lineup generator and the Occupy model. We're going to be looking at how to use it. And we're going to be getting people to go over to occupyfantasy.com and to sub, man. If you want to win money, you want to be part of the 10%, you got to do it. I did it last year. Look what happened to me. My ROI was almost 5,000%. Come on, people. You can do it too. Jump in there. It's not
hashtag testimonial.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And we did it every week. You can go back and watch the videos. They're on YouTube of us using the lineup generator to look and to find out our plays, to put things in, to look at the ownership. We loved it. Easy to use, easy to sort, to go through, to pick your players. Who do you not want in? Who do you want to play? How do you want to sculpt your lineup? How many stacks do you want? Where do you want those stacks to be? I mean, really, it's a nerd's paradise. So all you smart DFS nerds, get over there. I'm a nerd. Jamie is a super nerd. I mean, look at him. He's in a dungeon. You know what I mean? He's got a trophy next to him. So please do go over and join. Jamie, what about you? Where can people find you, Jamie, and what's coming up for you next, brother?
Lots coming up now that DFS is back upon us. You can find me on Twitter at JAC3600, at Fantasy Team Advice. Next week, I will have the week 1 edition of my game-by-game breakdown with red light, yellow light, and green light DFS plays for both cash and GPP. Cash article and a GPP article for footballdiehards.com, and accompanying YouTube shows Wednesday night, 8:30 Eastern, and Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. And then, as long as you're at Fantasy Team Advice, please check out our model. Our optimizer is constantly updated with every piece of news, no matter how small. So, it's really helping you with if you're drafting. If you're drafting this weekend, it's a really good tool for you. And it's customizable to all scoring settings and all league sizes.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. And also, if you're going to draft this weekend, please go check out my article, Wide Receiver 2 Theory, the 2021 edition. Who are the wide receivers? They're going to get more targets. Who are going to bust through their ADP? Last year, the model that I used predicted, guys like CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Deontay Johnson, DK Metcalf. You've heard of some of these. Robert Woods. 8 out of the 10 guys I picked finished in the top 25. So do check that out over at nimblewnumbers.com. And we've got exciting news over there. We're rolling out picks each week. We're going to be giving GPP picks, GPP plays, cash game plays as well for different contests. Setting up a Patreon over there for nimblewnumbers.com. I got the website built out. I just got to roll it out this weekend. Really excited about doing that. I got you guys featured over there as well. There's nice links from Occupy Fantasy for Brian and those guys. Really excited about the partnership there on the website. Beautiful pictures, and we're getting it rolling out. So do check that out. And I think that's it. I think we're good to go. I'm not even going to try to play the outro music because it just didn't even work the first time. So we're just going to say we'll see you next time. Appreciate it from Jamie and Brian. Thank you guys so much for checking us out over here at the Fantasy Football Hot Stove. Have a great week, and we'll see you. We're going to be on Fridays from now on. I'm pretty sure, right, Jamie? Fridays at 8:30. So next week we'll be on at 8:30 on Friday. Thursday, we don't want to ruin the game. We want to watch the game, gamble, right? Be on your couch, win money through Occupy Fantasy, read the Daily Plug, and that's how it works, right? I think that's it.